You're about to discover vegetables that literally thrive on neglect. While your neighbor is out there babying their tomatoes with weekly fertilizer schedules and pest management plans, you could be harvesting pounds of food from plants that basically grow themselves. Sounds too good to be true? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll wonder why anyone bothers with high-maintenance crops at all. Here's the thing about modern gardening. We've been sold a lie. The garden centers want you to believe you need special soils, specific fertilizers, perfectly timed watering schedules, and about 17 different sprays to grow food. But our ancestors? They were eating vegetables that required approximately zero effort. These plants didn't need coddling. They didn't need your attention. In fact, some of them grow better when you ignore them. Let's start with number 20. And trust me, we're building to some absolute game changers here. Number 20 is Good King Henry. Never heard of it? That's because seed companies can't make money off a plant that grows for decades without replanting. This perennial vegetable was a staple in European gardens for centuries before spinach showed up and stole its thunder. The leaves taste like spinach. The shoots can be eaten like asparagus, and the flower buds work like broccoli. One plant, 3 vegetables. And here's the kicker. Plant it once, harvest for 20 years. No replanting. No fussing. It grows in partial shade, tolerates poor soil, and actually prefers being ignored. Try killing this thing. Try. You'll have better luck getting rid of dandelions. Sea kale. This one's for everyone who's tired of their garden getting destroyed by coastal winds or salty soil. Sea kale literally grows on beaches. Its natural habitat is getting pummeled by ocean spray and sandy soil with basically zero nutrients. Plant this in your garden, and it'll think it's on vacation. The young shoots are blanched and eaten like asparagus, and they've got this nutty, slightly sweet flavor that'll make you question why asparagus gets all the attention. Another perennial. Another plant-it-once situation. And if you live anywhere near a coast, this thing will outlive your grandchildren. Moving to number 18. Skirret. Picture a carrot that actually wants to grow in your terrible clay soil. That's skirret. This medieval root vegetable tastes like a sweeter, nuttier carrot, and it grows in conditions that would make a normal carrot just give up and die. Heavy clay? Skirret loves it. Wet soil? No problem. It's a perennial root vegetable, which means you harvest some roots, leave some in the ground, and boom, next year you've got more. No replanting. The plant does the work while you're inside watching Netflix. Number 17 is where things get interesting. Orac. And before you roll your eyes at another spinach substitute, hear this. Orac grows 6 feet tall. It laughs at heat that makes regular spinach bolt faster than you can say gone to seed. Indible leaves in July. Orac is out there thriving in 90-degree heat, producing tender leaves that taste better than spinach anyway. It self-seeds aggressively. Plant it once, and you'll have volunteers popping up every spring for the rest of your life. Some people call this a weed problem. Smart people call it free food. 16. Alexander's. The plant's so easy to grow that it colonized half of Britain by accident. This biennial was the parsley of ancient Rome. Every part is edible. The leaves taste like parsley. The stems are like celery. The roots are like parsnips. And the flower buds can be eaten like broccoli. It grows in full shade. It grows on cliffsides. There are records of this plant growing out of castle walls with basically zero soil. If you can kill Alexander's, you could probably kill a rock. Number 15 is Patience Dock. The name literally means it's patient with terrible conditions. This perennial green grows in compacted soil, drought conditions, and weather that would make kale weep. The leaves are high in vitamins and have this lemony tang that works great in salads when they're young or cooked like spinach when mature. Once established, a single plant can produce leaves for 15 years. 15 years. From one plant. Do the math on how much bagged spinach that replaces. 14. Minutina. Also called Erba stella. This Italian green grows so fast and so reliably that it's basically the rabbits of the vegetable world. Plant to harvest in 3 weeks. It self-seeds everywhere. You'll find it in cracks in your patio, in gravel, in that weird strip between your driveway and fence. And you'll eat it all because it's delicious. Tastes like a mix between spinach and corn salad, with this slightly salty finish. grows year-round in mild climates. In cold climates, it just reseeds itself every spring without permission. Lucky number 13 is Turkish rocket. If regular arugula is the sprinter, Turkish rocket is the marathon runner. This perennial cousin of arugula comes back every year, grows bigger and produces more leaves. It handles cold that would kill regular arugula. It tolerates heat better. It's like someone took arugula and fixed everything annoying about it. The flavor is slightly milder, but more complex. You can harvest it multiple times per year for 5 or 6 years from the same plant. Cut it back, walk away, come back in a few weeks, and there's more. 12. Magenta Spreen. This one's for people who think vegetables need to earn their keep by looking good too. Magenta Spreen is a type of lamb's quarters with bright magenta leaves that make your garden look like a trendy restaurant decided to grow food. It grows in terrible soil. It grows fast. It self-seeds aggressively. And unlike most pretty vegetables, it actually tastes incredible. The leaves are tender and spinach-like, but with this earthy, slightly nutty flavor. Best part? Most pests ignore it completely. They're too busy destroying your tomatoes. Number 11 brings us to Ramsons. Wild garlic. This plant grows in shaded forests across Europe where basically nothing else will grow. Dense shade, Ramsons thrive. Root competition from trees. They don't care. They spread through bulb division and seeds, which means plant a small patch, and in 3 years you'll have enough wild garlic to supply a small restaurant. The leaves taste like mild garlic. The bulbs are like tiny garlic cloves. And the flowers are edible too. Harvest season is early spring, right when you're desperate for fresh greens and nothing else is ready. We're at number 10 now. And this is where we get into plants that are genuinely better than their domesticated cousins. Fat hen, the original spinach. This plant was found in the stomach of Toland man. A 2,400-year-old bog body. People were eating this stuff before written history. And for good reason. It's more nutritious than spinach, higher in vitamins, and it grows in any soil type, in drought, in poor conditions, and produces massive amounts of leaves. It self-seeds so enthusiastically that farmers consider it a weed. That's not a bug, that's the feature. One plant can produce over 70,000 seeds. Do you know what that means? It means you're never buying spinach again. 9. Perennial kale. Wait. Kale is already trendy. Why is it on this list? Because Dobbinton's kale is the version that comes back every year, doesn't flower and go to seed, and produces continuously for 5 years or more. Regular kale is a 2-year plant that produces well for 1 season. Dobbinton's just keeps going. Through winter, through summer, through your neglect. It grows from cuttings, so you don't even need seeds. Stick a cutting in the ground. Walk away. Come back to infinite kale. It's almost too easy. 8 is Caucasian spinach. But who cares when it tastes better? This climbing perennial produces heart-shaped leaves that taste like a mild, sweet spinach without any of the bitterness. It grows 12 feet tall, which means you can train it up a fence or trellis and suddenly you're harvesting pounds of greens from vertical space. It's a perennial in mild climates, and even in cold areas. It often comes back from the roots. The more you harvest, the more it grows. It's like the plant version of one of those magic wallets that never runs out of money. Number 7. Scorzonera. The black-skinned root vegetable that tastes like oysters. No, really. It's called the oyster plant for a reason. This perennial root grows in poor soil, tolerates drought, and can be left in the ground all winter because freezing actually improves the flavor. You know what that means? No storage, no root cellar. Just dig them up when you want to eat them. Even if you forget about them until spring, they're still good. Try that with a carrot. The tops are edible too. By the way, use them like lettuce. 6 brings us to lavage. This perennial herb tastes like celery concentrate. One plant grows 5 feet tall and produces enough leaves to replace celery in every recipe you'll make for the entire year. It's a perennial that comes back bigger and stronger every spring. It tolerates shade. It tolerates poor soil. Seeds and roots are all edible. And here's the really insane part. One lavage plant can serve your celery needs for 15 years. Think about how much celery costs at the grocery store. Now think about growing one plant that does the same job for a decade and a half. That's not just lazy gardening. That's financial planning. We're at number 5. And the top 5 are truly the plants that'll make you question modern agriculture entirely. Perennial broccoli. 9-star perennial broccoli. This plant produces small broccoli heads every spring for 5 years or more. You don't replant. You just harvest. It's hardy to about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it survives in most climates. The heads are smaller than regular broccoli, but when one plant produces for 5 years, who cares? Do the math. 5 years of broccoli from one plant versus buying transplants and replanting every single year. The lazy approach is also the smart approach. Number 4 is Babington's leek. The perennial leek that basically grows itself. Carefully hilled and harvested all at once. Babington's leek grows in a clump, gets bigger every year, and you just harvest individual stems when you need them. The rest keep growing. It produces bulbils, which are tiny aerial bulbs that fall to the ground and create new plants, which means it self-propagates for free while you sleep. This plant is doing more work for your food supply than most people do at their actual jobs. 3. Asparagus pea. Not actually asparagus, not really a pea, but absolutely delicious and ridiculously easy to grow. This nitrogen-fixing legume produces bright red flowers that are edible, followed by small winged pods that taste like asparagus and mushrooms had a baby. It grows in poor soil. It actually improves your soil because it's a legume. It self-seeds reliably, and the whole plant is pretty enough that people will think you're growing it as an ornamental. Nope, you're just eating it. The pods are ready in about 60 days, and the plant keeps producing until frost. It might even come back perennially. We're down to the final 2. Number 2 is a plant that most people actively try to kill. Stinging nettle. Yes, it stings. Wear gloves. Get over it. Because once you harvest and cook it, you've got one of the most nutritious greens on the planet, higher in protein than spinach, loaded with iron, calcium, and vitamins. And here's the thing about nettles. They grow in terrible soil. They grow in deep shade. They grow in areas that flood. They spread aggressively through underground runners. Most gardeners see this as a problem. Lazy gardeners see it as an infinite supply of superfoods. One patch of nettles can produce multiple harvests per year for decades. You can harvest the tops 4 or 5 times in a single season. Cut them back. They grow back. It's basically a money printing press. Except instead of money, it's nutrients. And number 1, the ultimate lazy gardener's vegetable. The one that makes all the others look like they require effort. Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke, grows 10 feet tall, produces beautiful flowers, and creates pounds and pounds of edible tubers underground, with absolutely zero effort from you. Plant it once. That's it. You're done. It's actively harder to stop it from growing than it is to grow it. Every tiny piece of tuber left in the ground becomes a new plant. It spreads. It multiplies. It takes over. Those people aren't thinking like lazy gardeners. The tubers taste like a nutty, sweet potato crossed with an artichoke. They're loaded with inulin, a prebiotic fiber that's incredibly good for gut health. Dig up what you need, leave the rest, and next year you'll have even more. No replanting, no fertilizing, no watering. In fact, the less you do, the better they grow. Rich soil makes them grow too aggressively. Good soil makes them produce more leaves than tubers. Neglected, dry, poor soil, that's where Jerusalem artichokes absolutely thrive. Here's what nobody tells you about these 20 vegetables. They're not forgotten because they don't work. They're forgotten because they work too well. Seed companies can't sell you new seeds every year for perennials. Fertilizer companies can't sell you specialized food for plants that thrive on neglect. The entire garden industry is built on plants that need constant intervention. But these 20? They're the plants that were feeding people before capitalism decided vegetables needed to be an annual subscription service. Think about what you just learned. You could plant Good King Henry, sea kale, Dobinton's kale, perennial broccoli and Jerusalem artichokes one time, and have 5 different vegetables producing food for the next decade with almost zero input from you. No annual planting, no fertilizing, no elaborate watering schedules, just occasional harvesting. That's not lazy. That's efficient. That's smart. That's how humans fed themselves for thousands of years before we decided that growing food should be complicated. The secret isn't better soil, or better seeds, or better timing. The secret is choosing plants that actually want to grow. Every single vegetable on this list is either a perennial that comes back year after year, or an annual that self-seeds so reliably that it might as well be perennial. They're adapted to poor conditions, neglect, and minimal care, because that's how they evolved. We didn't breed these plants in laboratories to need perfect conditions. They grew in the wild, fed our ancestors, and are still perfectly happy to feed us if we just give them a tiny bit of space. Now here's the really interesting part. These vegetables are also more nutritious than most modern varieties. Fat hen has more protein than spinach. Nettles have more iron. Jerusalem artichokes have prebiotic fiber that you can't get from potatoes. Why? Because modern breeding focused on yield, appearance, and shelf life. Not nutrition. Not ease of growing. We optimized vegetables for industrial agriculture and grocery store distribution. These 20 vegetables are optimized for actually growing food efficiently with minimal input. So what do you do with this information? Start small. Pick 3 or 4 from this list that sound interesting. Order the seeds or plants. Stick them in the least convenient corner of your yard, the spot with terrible soil or too much shade or where nothing else seems to grow. Then walk away. Check on them occasionally. Harvest when they're ready. And watch as they outperform every high-maintenance crop you're babying in your main garden beds. Because at the end of the day, the best gardening strategy isn't more work. It's working with plants that don't need you to work at all. These 20 forgotten vegetables aren't asking for your attention. They're just quietly offering to feed you for years with almost zero effort on your part. The only question is whether you're smart enough to take them up on the offer.